What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Can I get a quick RIP in the chat for my 60-inch TV that I just had to bury? I was watching the Carolina Panthers break the Atlanta Falcons before I came on here, which is so ironic about this. And I watched the game live. The thing is, before I record, I like to rewatch some of the highlights of the games that I'm going to talk about. Because even though I watch all of these games live, when you're watching 4 or 5 games at once, sometimes you can get certain games mixed up with one another. So watching the highlights just gives me a little bit of a refresher of certain key moments so I can align them up with my notes. So I'm watching Michael Penix throw his second interception of the day, which ultimately ended up getting him benched. And when this second interception happens, my TV falls off the dresser that I have it on, and the bottom of the screen ends up cracking, and that's all she wrote, which the TV already had a little bit of an issue going on. Like, the bottom half of the screen was had this white filter on it, but it just hurts because it was a 60-inch and somebody did give it to me. My grandma gave it to me as a gift, so it kind of hurts that it broke the way that it did, watching the Falcons get destroyed by the Carolina Panthers, which we're going to dive into what that loss means for Atlanta as far as Raheem Morris' job, Michael Penix's future as Atlanta's starting quarterback. The Chiefs, they were able to get their first win of the season against the Giants tonight, 22-9. But I'm still very concerned about KC despite their first win of the season. I feel what they're lacking is a big reason why not just their division, but the rest of the NFL has started to catch up to them. The Eagles are still undefeated. They still keep finding ways to win games despite not doing it all that impressively. I got thoughts on the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. There's a bunch that we have to get into. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. If you live, eat, breathe, and sleep football, we're talking NFL, college football, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you are a diehard football fan, this is the right place for you. Go ahead and make sure that you are subscribed. Check us out wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, JT Sports, not just the YouTube channel. We are a podcast. Links are in the description and in the pinned comment section below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy the content and you support the grind. We will greatly appreciate it. And let's dive into it. The Chiefs got their first win of the season, taking down the New York Giants 22-9 on Sunday Night Football. But I'm still very concerned about the Chiefs. Their schedule is only going to get tougher from this point out. You play the Baltimore Ravens next week. And a huge issue that the Chiefs have is not necessarily Patrick Mahomes regressing. That's been a big talking point. The Eagles have exposed to the world how to slow down the Chiefs. I don't think any of those two narratives are true. Somewhat, I think the Eagles exposing how you beat the Chiefs has a little bit of truth to it in some capacity, but I don't agree with the sentiment that Mahomes has regressed. Mahomes has adapted to the personnel that the Chiefs have given him. At one point, the Chiefs had one of the best rosters in the NFL. Not only were they loaded on defense, but they also were loaded on offense. And I'm talking about the first iteration of the Mahomes Chiefs dynasty, when they had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Mahomes. That was the best trio in the NFL at the time in terms of when it came to passing trios. Tyreek Hill was arguably the best receiver in the league. when he was in Kansas City, and Travis Kelce was undoubtedly the best tight end in the league at that time. But when Kansas City traded away Tyreek Hill, they were never able to find a suitable replacement for him. They were able to come across Rashee Rice, who's a solid receiver, but he's no Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have the ability to break open a game with just one play. He doesn't have the ability to take a 5-yard drag and turn it into a 70-yard touchdown. When Tyreek Hill got traded away from Kansas City and the Chiefs were still able to have success without Tyreek Hill, they got comfortable. They got comfortable with Mahomes being able to elevate a supporting cast of receivers that wasn't that good. And instead of the Chiefs continuing to build off that and make that wide receiving core better by trading for a proven superstar or trading up in the draft for one of the big name receivers, they instead continued to settle. And they said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If Brady was winning Super Bowls with Julian Edelman and Chris Hogan, then Mahomes can win Super Bowls with Juju Smith-Schuster, who most of us probably forgot is still in the league, or watch Travis Kelce. It doesn't matter who Mahomes has at receiver. Since he's so great, he can win whoever we give him to throw the football to. Well, that doesn't work anymore. And the Chiefs have quickly figured that out. The rest of the NFL has figured out from watching the Philadelphia Eagles destroy the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last season that if you have a more talented roster than the Chiefs, you can out-talent them and beat them that way. You see, for a very long time, the Chiefs were able to be beneficiaries of an AFC that had a bunch of great quarterbacks, but not a bunch of great teams built around those quarterbacks. Look at their division. Justin Herbert has always been an elite quarterback, but it's not until now with him getting an elite head coach, everybody now truly understands how good he is. And now that the Chargers have an elite head coach and the team that Jim Harbaugh wants in order to win, they're in trouble. Because now the Chargers are a more talented team than what Kansas City is. Plus, they don't really have that big of an advantage at quarterback. Justin Herbert is just as talented, if not more talented than Patrick Mahomes. But the difference is Mahomes has won in the playoffs. Well, what happens when you give Justin Herbert a championship caliber team with championship level coaching? Then the playing field between the Chiefs and the Chargers gets leveled, which is why the Chargers were able to beat the Chiefs week 1 of this season in a close game. When in a bunch of the games that they played in last season, when the Chargers weren't as good as what they are this season, they lost those games. Kansas City won those games. Why? Because Kansas City was able to win because they had Mahomes and they had the slightly more talented team. That's not the case anymore. The Chargers are a more talented team than Kansas City. Having Mahomes and Andy Reid just doesn't give you an automatic win against teams in your division anymore. It doesn't give you an automatic win over certain teams like the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills when you see them in the playoffs now, because now their rosters are more talented than your roster. So now, despite how good Mahomes is, in a lot of games that the Chiefs are going to be in now, he's going to be at a disadvantage because he's going to have a hard time being able to overcome teams having an outright better roster than what he has to work with. You can't give Mahomes Marquise Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and a washed Travis Kelce and think that's going to be enough for him to get past a Baltimore Ravens secondary that has Jair Alexander, Kyle Hamilton, and Marlon Humphrey on it. Those are 3 former All-Pros that Mahomes is going to have to win against with scrubs at receiver. And Kansas City can be frustrated all they want to about the lack of production that they've gotten out of receiver despite their attempts to address this position. They haven't tried hard enough. Kansas City needs to go out and get a proven superstar at receiver. And just because they always are in the AFC Championship, they always in the Super Bowl, they're picking low in the draft, isn't an excuse that should be used to justify Mahomes having the worst receiving core in the NFL. When you are an elite organization, you have to be able to adapt to being an elite level organization, which means still finding ways to acquire elite talent in spite of the hurdles that you face due to the consequences of success. The Eagles have the best roster in the NFL. They're stacked at every position despite just winning the freaking Super Bowl. And the Eagles always are really good. They're always picking low in the first round of the draft. But yet they still find a way to acquire elite talent no matter where they're picking at in the draft. Unlike Kansas City, they can draft elite talent on defense, but they suck at drafting elite talent on offense. So if you can't find elite talent in the draft, you have to go out there and use those draft picks that you would have used on drafting guys on offense and use them to acquire proven guys on offense. The Chiefs traded for DeAndre Hopkins 3 years too late. They should have already got DeAndre Hopkins before he fell out of his prime. When you are a team that's in a conference that's home to gods at quarterback, you're putting Patrick Mahomes at a disadvantage when he's throwing to Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Wash Travis Kelce, and Lamar Jackson has an offense with Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. Jalen Hurts has a God squad. Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Josh Allen has a really good team. But you're not giving Patrick Mahomes any of the weapons that some of these other quarterbacks have. And yeah, you still think that he's still going to find a way to get you over the hump year after year. Eventually, things change. What works before may not continue to work. They say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is true. But why wait for something to break to upgrade it and replace it versus having no choice but to be forced to have to do it when it's too little too late and everybody else has surpassed you, and then your advances that you had on the AFC and the rest of the NFL that led you to becoming a dynasty in the first place is now gone, and you're struggling to get back to that level. The Chiefs are struggling not because Mahomes is regressing, but because they're getting out-rostered by the rest of the NFL. 4 or 5 years ago, they had the best team in the NFL with the best head coach in the NFL, with the best quarterback in the NFL, with the best tight end in the NFL, with the best receiver in the NFL, and Tyreek Hill. And ever since they got rid of Tyreek, they got complacent at receiver. They believe that they can continue to dominate in spite of not being as stacked as their contemporaries. And now that's starting to catch up with them. And that's why, like I've been saying these last few months before this season started, the Chiefs aren't going to make it out of the AFC this year. The rest of the competition has caught up to Kansas City. And that's showing right now. And I think that this is a team that still gets into the playoffs, but it's not as easy as what it's been for them to get into the postseason this year as what it's been in years past. They probably get in as a 9-8, 10-7 team, and I don't see them getting past the divisional round this year. They just don't have enough weaponry for Mahomes on offense to get out of the AFC this year. So the Eagles and the Rams played in the all-time classic. The Eagles win 33-26. They come from behind. They block 2 field goals. They edge out the Rams. And all you see is how ugly this win was for the Eagles. It wasn't an impressive game when you look at it. from a box score standpoint, Jalen Hurts in the first half didn't even have over 100 passing yards. The offense just looked out of sorts. But all of a sudden, something just started to click. And the Eagles don't care about style points. Style points don't matter to Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts doesn't need to throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns every game. They don't need to blow out everybody 45-20 to know that they're the best team in the NFC and arguably the best team in the NFL right now. The Philadelphia Eagles, how they're winning games this year is the exact way that the Chiefs were winning games last year. It wasn't always pretty. A lot of games were close on most occasions. You had to just find a way to just survive in advance. And that's what championship teams do. Championship teams find ways to win games that they should lose due to them playing not their best football. But with good teams, they have something that I like to call the trapdoor ability. The trapdoor ability, anytime you allow a team like the Eagles or the Chiefs to hang around in the game and you don't finish them off, they find a way to come back and beat you. And that's what the Rams did in this game. They had ample opportunities to finish off the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were unable to get it done. And when you are trying to kick game-winning field goals on a team like Philadelphia, you're just asking to lose. I thought that Sean McVay should have went for it on 4th down. It's 4th down. Let's not try to win the game kicking the ball, because we know what happens when you put the game in the hands of these field goal kickers. They can't be trusted. Sean McVay is one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history. Matthew Stafford is a borderline Hall of Famer. Put the ball in his hands and go out there and win the game. Don't just settle for a field goal. Go out there and win it. That's what people get wrong when they play the Eagles, when they play the Kansas City Chiefs. You keep thinking, oh, we're going to beat them with just a field goal, or we're going to beat them by punting on the football and our defense is going to stop them. No! You have to cut the chicken by the throat. You have to go and beat Philadelphia. You have to beat Kansas City. You have to knock them out. You have to go out and go up by 2 possessions with 2 minutes left to finish those teams off. You can't finish off the Eagles and the Chiefs by saying, we're going to kick a field goal and we're going to play defense. No. That's not how you beat a championship team. You got to go out there and you got to say, we're going to win this game. Not, we're going to hope we can win this game. That's what teams do when they try to kick field goals to beat Philadelphia or beat Kansas City or just rely on their defense to win. If you give Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes an opportunity to win the game, they're going to do it, which is why you can't allow them to get an opportunity to get the ball in their hands. And you can't give them opportunities to beat you. Kicking field goals is allowing the Eagles an opportunity to beat you. Because field goals, there's just too much that comes down to luck and randomness. You can't leave some things up to chance. And beating the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs are one of those. You can't put your fate in the hands of a kicker that you're going to beat Kansas City, you're going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles and win the Super Bowl or survive in the playoffs. No, you got to go out there and beat these teams and literally beat them by not giving them an opportunity to win, by blowing them out or making it impossible for them to win. If the Rams go for it on that 4th down, instead of going for that first field goal attempt and they get that 1st down, you improve your chances of winning because then you can continue to run down the clock, and then maybe you score. And maybe you don't get an opportunity to score a touchdown, and you still got to settle for another field goal. At least it's an easier field goal to make. Anything that's 30 yards out or more, it's just too risky. If it's 4th and 3 or shorter, I have to go for it. I have to play for the win. You don't play to win by allowing these kickers who just have proven on so many occasions that they can't be trusted at all to win you a game. The Philadelphia Eagles just have, and I know this is cliche what I'm about to say, but they just have the heart of a champion. And Jalen Hurts, the Jalen Hurts disrespect has reached all-time levels. Yes, we know that Jalen Hurts isn't the most talented quarterback in the league. But what has happened to disrespecting good quarterbacks? What has happened to disrespecting guys like Jalen Hurts that just go out and win? It's not always pretty. It's not always the most impressive on the box score. But Jalen Hurts, no matter what you say about his impact on the Eagles' wins, the guy is able to do what a bunch of other quarterbacks in this league can't, and that's rise to the occasion in big moments in big games. Jalen Hurts is the most consistent big game quarterback in the NFL. No matter what, you know that Jalen Hurts is going to give you good quarterback play in every game that you play in. You know what you're getting out of Jalen. The standard is the standard of Jalen. You don't see too many odd performances from Jalen Hurts when he has 3 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown. There's not too many games that you can watch the Eagles lose and single out Jalen Hurts as the sole reason why the Eagles lost those games. Jalen Hurts, no matter how the stats may look, he's a lot better than what the stats show. Numbers lie. Nobody always likes to admit that. They say women lie, men lie, numbers don't. Numbers do lie. Because numbers can be deceiving if you use the numbers out of context. And very often, the stats are used against Jalen Hurts out of context. You want to use stats against Jalen Hurts to prove he's not an elite quarterback. But if you actually watch the games, which matters more, the eye test would tell you that Jalen Hurts is elite because he consistently shows up in the big moments. The things that stats don't show about Jalen Hurts are never used to show how elite he is. They're always used to support him being overrated or him being carried by a team that's well constructed. Why are we using the Philadelphia Eagles being a properly ran organization, being built the right way, as a knock against Jalen Hurts and how good he is? Isn't that the goal? To build the best team possible around your franchise quarterback so he can have success? But we make all these excuses for Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and other quarterbacks who haven't gotten it done. But yet we penalize Jalen Hurts for being able to get it done the way that every team wants to do it. Every team wants to win the Super Bowl the way the Philadelphia Eagles have, because that's the goal. To build through the draft, get good players in free agency, develop good players, and build a great overall championship caliber team. So why is it that we're using Jalen Hurts being in an ideal situation that every quarterback will want to be in as a knock against them? Just saying, it's a little stupid. Style points don't matter for the Eagles. Even though this game was a little ugly, this game just further shows why the Eagles are going to be back in the Super Bowl again. This is going to be their 3rd Super Bowl in the last 4 years for a reason, because they're able to win games like this. What the Eagles did against the Rams is something that the Ravens should learn from, because what the Eagles did to beat the Rams is what the Ravens are unable to do to get Lamar Jackson over the hump in the playoffs. And that's actually be able to rise to the occasion. Everybody being able to make the big plays in the big moments. Not making plays that cost your team in a big moment. And that's what the Eagles do so well that the Ravens are unable to do in the playoffs. The Eagles don't hurt themselves in big moments. They don't have big drops like Mark Andrews had with that 2-point conversion. They don't forget to give the ball to their elite running back, like how the Ravens did with Derrick Henry last year at times in the playoffs. And they don't put everything on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. They don't say, hey, Jalen, go win us the game, like how the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. This game that the Eagles just won against the Rams is why they continue to have success in the postseason, why Jalen Hurts has a ring, and why Lamar Jackson doesn't. Lamar's the more talented of the two players, but he's on a team that self-destructs in big moments. The Eagles don't. They rise to the occasion in big moments. They are able to deliver with the game on the line. The Ravens don't. They find a way to fold when the game is on the line. The Ravens can learn some things from the Eagles' 33-26 win over the Rams. The Steelers take down the Patriots 21-14. They are now 2-1 on the season. Aaron Rodgers comes through late with a clutch touchdown to take the lead to Calvin Austin. The Steelers are able to capitalize off a bunch of Patriots fumbles, a Drake May red zone interception, and ultimately they edge out the Patriots in a game that was really lackluster, to say the least, from the Steelers offense. And the Steelers offense is putting too much on Aaron Rodgers' plate right now. Aaron Rodgers is 40-something years old. The dude has 1 foot out of the door, and he's about to retire after this season. And the Steelers are trying to get every little ounce of juice that Aaron Rodgers has left in him by asking him to carry an offense that's lacking the necessary firepower to win with a guy like Aaron Rodgers that's in the last stage of his career. You can't ask a guy like Aaron Rodgers that's 150 years old, that's a dinosaur fossil in the pocket. He can't move. He can't run to save his life. He cannot run defensive tackles. He cannot run defensive ends. Aaron Rodgers is a pocket quarterback. When he gets outside the pocket, he gets fucked up. Like, Aaron Rodgers has taken some really bad hits outside the pocket, and we're only 3 weeks through this season. Aaron Rodgers is not going to survive the entirety of this season without missing some time this year, with how bad this Steelers offensive line has looked. Now, the offensive line is slightly better than what it was last year, but it still isn't that good. Aaron Rodgers is out there having to run around like he's Lamar Jackson, when he isn't. The dude is a fossil. And yet, the Steelers are hoping that the ground game can end up opening up some things and take some of the load off of Aaron Rodgers in the passing attack. The ground game isn't going to open up. Jalen Warren is not an RB1. He's only an RB1 because of the Steelers whiffing on Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson, I was never a fan of the pick. You got rid of Najee Harris because he was too slow. He lacked explosiveness. And you replace him with a running back that has a similar athletic profile to Najee Harris, that also is pretty big, isn't that explosive, and doesn't really have a lot of breakaway speed. And he can't take care of the football either. At least Najee Harris didn't fumble. So Caleb Johnson, you can't get him involved on the offense. You can't get him involved on special teams. He's a dud. It doesn't take that long to realize guys who can't play and guys who can play. Running back is an instant impact position. Either you're good or you're not. And it doesn't take long to figure out. And Caleb Johnson is not good. So you're relying on Jalen Warren, a guy who's more so a scat back, a really good receiving back that does have the ability to run the football and break off a few explosive plays here and there, but he's not a guy that you give 15, 16, 17 carries a game to. You got Kenneth Gainwell, but what is he? The Steelers don't have anything at running back. So you give Aaron Rodgers an inconsistent young offensive line, no run game, and only one reliable receiver to throw the football to, and DK Metcalf. And you're only targeting DK 6-7 times per game. With DK being the only reliable receiver that you have, you should be giving DK Metcalf at least 10 targets or more per game. Yes, Calvin Austin is a good deep threat, but he's not a guy who you can rely on to consistently move the chains for you. The Steelers need major help at running back. and the receiver if they're going to be able to win at least a playoff game with Aaron Rodgers this year. This is why I was against the Steelers trading away George Pickens. If you're going to roll the dice on Aaron Rodgers for 1 year, it would make sense that he has both George Pickens and DK Metcalf, because the more weapons that he has to throw to, the better. But instead, you trade away George Pickens without having a real contingency plan for how you're going to replace him in motion. You trade away George Pickens, and then you're scrambling at the last minute, trying to find a way to make a Terry McLaurin trade happen, trying to get some last-minute good receivers off the market in free agency, trying to get somebody off the trade block when it already is too little too late. All of the good receivers that can really have a big impact on changing your season are already off the market. DK Metcalf should be getting at least 10, 11 targets per game. He's one of the highest paid receivers in the league, so he should be earning that contract. The Steelers aren't using DK Metcalf enough. You should be force-feeding him the ball. The Steelers don't have a lot of weapons on offense. So when you have somebody that's built like a freight truck at receiver, you should be finding ways to get him the ball. And it doesn't always have to involve Aaron Rodgers throwing it to him. Put DK Metcalf out Wildcat quarterback. Call some design quarterback runs with DK in that Wildcat QB and see what happens. The Steelers can get a lot more out of DK Metcalf than what they're getting out of him to just throwing him go balls or jump balls in the red zone. DK Metcalf needs to be more involved in the Steelers offense with the amount of cap space that he's taken up. They should have kept George Pickens. And I still am dying on this hill that George Pickens would have made the Steelers a sleeper Super Bowl team if he was still around with Aaron Rodgers. This offense, here's the problem that the Steelers have. The Steelers never have a long-term plan on offense. Every offseason, they just go off what they can best put together. They don't have no vision when it comes to building this offense. They're just like, what can we do to get by for this season? Get us to the next year. There is no long-term strategy involved in the Steelers offense. It's not, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers and we're going to let him play out this season and we're going to target this quarterback in next year's draft. No, everything is just a year-to-year thing with Pittsburgh. That's what this offense has been since the retirement of Big Ben. And it's not just all on Mike Tomlin. It's a front office thing too. And that's why the Steelers are looking the way that they look on offense. If it isn't the defense helping this offense out by giving them easy field position, you're pulling teeth asking the Steelers to give you a full-length drive that's 80, 70 yards downfield for a touchdown. They have a hard time being able to do it. And eventually, the defense is going to get worn out. And the defense has already been uncharacteristically bad. So imagine how worse this defense could look at the end of this season if the offense doesn't improve. Now, maybe the defense can improve. Maybe it's a good thing that the defense is struggling this early for the Steelers, because maybe the issue is they play too good early, and that's why they play bad down the stretch, because they run out of juice. Maybe if they play bad early, they'll carry this offense late down the stretch. But until the Steelers trade for a running back and a receiver, they're putting too much on Grandpa Aaron Rodgers' plate right now. He's asking too much, and he's not going to last this season. That brother's out there getting bent all kinds of ways. Now, I told you guys before this season started that the Patriots were overrated and they were not going to make it to the playoffs this year. The main reason for why there was so much hype around the Patriots entering this year was because they hired a proven head coach in Mike Vrabel that has shown the ability to win. He had success when he was coaching the Tennessee Titans, so he knows what he's doing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to turn around the Patriots overnight, like how a lot of folks in the media were thinking. And the issue with the Patriots is the same issue that they had last year with Gerard Mayo. They don't have a lot of talent on offense. Now, their offense is a lot more talented this year than what it was last year. You spent a lot of money on the offensive line. You got Stephon Diggs. So you're a lot more talented on offense than what you were last year, but you still have a long ways to go. You still have one of the worst receiving corps in the NFL. Stephon Diggs is okay, but he's not a great wide receiver one for a young, developing quarterback like Drake May at this stage of his career, especially coming off a season-ending injury last year. Then you got Pop Douglas is good. He's a solid slot receiver, but you got nobody else after that. You got Stephon, who's okay. You got Pop, who probably is your most talented receiver right now. And who else? Your offensive line. The right side of your offensive line was a mess. The Steelers' defensive line was absolutely destroying the right side of your offensive line. Now, your left tackle, Will Campbell, that you drafted out of LSU, he's pretty good, but you still have a lot of holes that you got to fill on that offensive line. And the ground game hasn't been there for the Patriots. We talk about how non-existent the Steelers' rushing attack has been. How about how non-existent the ground game has been for the Patriots? They have a young quarterback that's developing, that doesn't have a lot of experience, and he has no ground game to support him. They have Travion Henderson, who I thought was the third best running back coming out of this past year's draft class, and yet they're not using him that much. How many fumbles does Ramondre Stevenson have to put on the ground for the Patriots to realize that he has no business getting more touches than Travion Henderson? Antonio Gibson, he was choking up the pigskin. Like, Travion Henderson should be the full-fledged RB1 for the Patriots. He should never come off the field unless he needs a water break. That's the only time Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson should be taking snaps at running back for the Patriots. Travion Henderson not only is the best pass-catching back that the Patriots have, but he's their best pass blocker, and he's their most dynamic player on offense. Every time Travion Henderson gets the ball in his hands, good things happen. But Josh McDaniels, for some reason, has Travion Henderson put in the doghouse. Your offensive line isn't that good. It would do your young quarterback justice to have his best pass blocking back in on obvious passing situations. It would do him justice to have Travion Henderson in. It would do your team justice in the win and loss column if you had a guy that wasn't coughing up the football like Ramondre Stevenson. The Patriots are not making it to the playoffs. Mike Vrabel is a more hip Mike Tomlin. He's a great motivator. He's a great players coach. He can win with whoever you give him at quarterback, but he doesn't know offense. And he hasn't produced a good offense ever since he lost Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator. So the same issues that people have with Mike Tomlin are the same issues that Mike Vrabel has, but nobody criticizes Mike Vrabel the way they criticize Mike Tomlin because he's a lot younger. But they have similar issues. Mike Vrabel hasn't had a good offense in over the last 3-4 years. He's gone through several quarterbacks. He doesn't know how to develop a young quarterback either. So the Patriots are not going to be a bad team this year, but they are not going to be a playoff team this year like how most were suggesting they were going to be, all because they hired Mike Vrabel. Just because you have a good coach doesn't mean that just automatically makes you a playoff team. You still got to have the team. You still got to make the right staff hires. And the Patriots haven't proved that they've done any of those. All right, now, the Bears just dominated the Cowboys. 31-14 was the final score. Things are about to turn around for the Chicago Bears. After them getting dumped on for the first 3 weeks of this season, we could be singing a different tune about the Bears very soon because their next 3 games look very favorable as far as them being able to turn their season around and start heating up around the right time. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Getting out to a slow start to the season when you have a new head coach and a young quarterback who essentially is in his rookie season, because I count this as Caleb Williams' rookie season. Because last year, he was in such a bad situation with the awful coaching, how bad the offensive line was. It was really hard to properly evaluate how good Caleb Williams was. Because there were certain factors that he had to deal with that I don't necessarily feel were all on him that get used and how his rookie season was judged. I'm judging Caleb Williams from what I see right now. And what I see right now is a quarterback that is steadily improving every game that he plays under Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson eventually is going to get Caleb Williams playing at an MVP level. And these next few games that the Bears have, the Raiders on the road, the Commanders on the road, the Saints, this is the get-right stretch for the Chicago Bears. You should easily be able to go 3-0 and get yourself back to above 500 before you have that tough road game against the Baltimore Ravens. And even after that game, you play both the Bengals and the Vikings back-to-back with quarterbacks that aren't that good. The Bengals have a backup quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, if he's starting at that point, you can win that game. That's the second time you're going to be facing up against J.J. McCarthy, and you should have beat the Vikings week 1. So you facing the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, and that Brian Flores defense a second time, you'll be better suited to win that game. Ben Johnson isn't going to get out coached twice by Brian Flores. He's just too much of an offensive genius for that to happen. And by that point, Ben Johnson should have already figured out how this offense should be schemed around Caleb Williams' strength. You see, right now, Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, they're in that dating period where you're trying to figure the person that you're dating out. You're trying to figure what they like, what they don't like, who they are, what makes them happy, what doesn't make them happy, where they like to go, what's their favorite things to eat. That's what Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are trying to figure out. And over these next 3 games, they're going to be able to get a better understanding of each other. And by the time they come out of that Ravens game, win or lose, they should be able to finally have an understanding of what they expect from each other, what works, what doesn't work, and that's when the Bears can heat up. I expect for the Bears, by the time we get to around Thanksgiving, to be 5-4, and that's when we start to see them play some of their best football. That's when you start to see Caleb Williams look like the number 1 overall pick. That's when you start to see the elevation in his game. That's when you start to see the genius of Ben Johnson start to show. Right now, there still is a lot of growing pains because it's a new head coach with a young quarterback. That's to be expected. Ben Johnson is still learning a lot as well. So you got a young quarterback that's learning, and you got a young head coach that's learning. So, of course, there's going to be some inconsistencies to start this thing. But eventually, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are going to get the ball rolling. And the NFL is a tale of 2 seasons. They always say it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And the real football season starts after Thanksgiving. That's when we start to figure out the true identity of all of these teams. And that's when we're going to see the Bears hit their final form. This is our early stage that the Bears are in when it comes to the development of this offense. What this offense is right now with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson is not going to be the offense that you see when this year is finished. This is far from being a finished product. The Panthers didn't beat the Falcons. They broke the Atlanta Falcons. Because the Falcons are walking out of this loss to the Panthers asking themselves questions that they never thought they would be asking, at least this early into the season. You thought you were going to be discussing Raheem Morris job security late November, early December. you didn't think you would be discussing if Raheem Morris should get fired only 3 weeks into this season. But here we are. And you especially didn't think that we would be questioning if Michael Penix is the future at quarterback for the Falcons only 3 weeks into this season. But here we are. So let's talk about these things, because this loss to the Panthers was really demoralizing for the Falcons on several fronts. For one, the Falcons on paper have a way better team than the Carolina Panthers. You are going up against a Carolina Panthers team that right now, before they beat you, was in crisis mode. Carolina had concerns about Bryce Young, the offense, the defense, and then all of a sudden, they get gifted with the get-right game against the Atlanta Falcons. And boy, did they get right all right. Bryce Young is fully confident now. He's feeling good about himself. Dave Canales is feeling great about not just the offense, but the defense as well. So this could be one of those games for the Carolina Panthers that ends up helping them go on somewhat of a win streak. And this could be one of those losses for the Falcons that ends up kind of foreshadowing the drama that's to come for this team this season. One, Raheem Morris. Look, I was never a believer in Raheem Morris. You guys already know this. I believe that Bill Belichick should have got this job instead of Raheem Morris. And obviously, Raheem Morris, it looks like a better coach than what Bill Belichick looks like right now. When you look at the disaster that North Carolina has been and how no other NFL teams offered Bill Belichick a job but the Falcons. So, even though it looks like a smart decision in hindsight, I still believe that Bill Belichick would have had the Falcons in a better position than what they currently are now, because Bill Belichick's issue is that he doesn't know how to put together a good offense. Atlanta already had the pieces in place for Bill Belichick to be successful. You just had to get quarterback right. But if you could have got quarterback right, Bill Belichick would have been straight. You know that the defense was going to be good, and situationally, you would be a solid football team, but you rolled the dice on Raheem Morris. And the issue that I have with the Falcons hiring Raheem Morris was that you hired a second-chance head coach. Raheem Morris, the first time he was a head coach, he felt miserably in Tampa for the similar reasons that the Falcons are currently struggling. Couldn't get quarterback right and couldn't get the defense right despite being a defensive-minded coach. So the same reasons why Raheem Morris got fired in Tampa are the same reasons why the Atlanta Falcons are struggling right now. Now, the defense is good. I don't think the defense is anything to be concerned about. But the offense is a problem. Now, I like Zach Robinson. At least I thought I liked Zach Robinson. When you hire a Sean McVay guy, a lot of people are going to like the hire because Sean McVay is one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history, and most Sean McVay disciples end up panning out. Liam Cohen has looked really good. Kevin O'Connell has looked really good. Zach Taylor has been to a freaking Super Bowl and 2 AFC championships. So if you hire anybody off Sean McVay's staff to be your offensive coordinator, you got a high chance of striking gold. But there are a few misses. And Raheem Morris, unfortunately, happened to get the misses of the Sean McVay coaching tree. And Zach Robinson looks to be one of those misses. He keeps running this pistol offense, which is hindering the ground game and is also holding back Michael Penix. And what frustrates me about Zach Robinson is that he's not allowing Michael Penix to use his superpower, which is that RPG that he has for a left arm. In the 3 games that Michael Penix started in last season, he led all quarterbacks during that stretch in air yards and yards per completion. Nearly over 10 yards per pass he was completing. This year, the complete opposite. Michael Penix went from looking like a RPG to being a check down Charlie. All I see Michael Penix doing now with one of the strongest arms in the NFL, 5-yard checkdowns to Bijan Robinson, 6-yard outs to Drake London. That's it. You mean to tell me that you flew all the way across the country to Washington? Because remember, when the Falcons drafted Michael Penix, they said, boy, you didn't think we flew all the way across the country not to draft you, right? So you mean to tell me that you drafted Michael Penix with this RPG for a left arm, and you're going to put training wheels on him? Because that's what the Atlanta Falcons have done with Michael Penix. They have put training wheels on Michael Penix. Why is Michael Penix not ripping that football? Why are we not seeing Michael Penix attempt these tight window throws that he was attempting last year in his first 3 starts? It looks like the Atlanta Falcons has scared the aggressiveness out of Michael Penix. It's like they want Michael Penix to be Kirk Cousins. Nobody wants to see Michael Penix be Kirk Cousins. He's a boring quarterback to watch, and he's a pocket quarterback that's out of style. Let Michael Penix throw the football downfield. Why are we not seeing more one-on-one 50-50 balls to Drake London? Why are we not seeing more downfield passing attempts out of this Falcons offense? Because that's what this Falcons offense has the ability to do better than anybody else with the arm strength of Michael Penix. If Michael Penix is going to throw interceptions, I'd rather him throw interceptions throwing the ball downfield, which is what he does best. He has a beautiful deep ball. It's like the Atlanta Falcons have taken away everything that made Michael Penix a great quarterback prospect coming out of Washington. They said, we want you to be a completely different quarterback. It's like they've brainwashed Michael Penix. I don't even recognize Michael Penix that I see playing for the Falcons anymore. So Michael Penix that I watched at Washington, the Michael Penix that I saw last year, his first 3 starts, was throwing the football down the field. He wasn't scared to throw a tight window throw with 3-2 defenders around the receiver. He wasn't scared to let it rip. No, it's just like he's gun shy. The Atlanta Falcons are telling him, hey, bro, like, you got this strong arm, but you need to watch how you use it. I'm really upset with how the Atlanta Falcons are handling Michael Penix right now. This was an offense that was supposed to be built around the deep ball, built around the explosive plays that Michael Penix has the ability to generate due to his rare arm strength. But we're not seeing that. It's like Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris are scared shitless to let Michael Penix throw the freaking football downfield. It's insanity to me. And, you know, I picked the Falcons before this season to win the NFC South. And picking the Falcons to win this division this year went against my mores, because I've always have stood 2 toes down that second chance head coaches will never work out. Because normally when somebody shows you who they are the first time, you're supposed to believe them, because that's actually who they are. Raheem Morris already showed us that he was a bad head coach when he got fired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Falcons had to be the team to let everybody know a second time that Raheem Morris is not head coach material. I like Raheem Morris. I'm rooting for the brother to succeed. I never pick teams like the Atlanta Falcons with questionable head coaching situations to win a division. But I picked the Falcons and gave them the benefit of a doubt because I liked Zach Robinson and I believed in Michael Penix. More so because I believed in Michael Penix. I thought that Michael Penix could overcome the dysfunction of the Atlanta Falcons coaching staff. But obviously not, because Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris are not allowing Michael Penix to use that RPG for a left arm. It's like they have training wheels or handcuffs on Michael Penix. They don't want Michael Penix throwing the football downfield. They are scared out of their minds to let Michael Penix be what he is, which is a gunslinger. It's like they want him to be this check down machine. Check down quarterbacks don't win you games. I don't even recognize this Michael Penix anymore. Like when he threw that second interception and he was trying to make the tackle, I was just saying to myself, man, Michael Penix, brother, they got to take you out for this game so you can get right. Obviously, they're not going to start Kirk Cousins, at least not right now. But eventually, if Michael Penix continues to struggle, then that conversation will come up. And it will come up because Raheem Morris isn't a good head coach. I'm sorry, but I've tried to be patient with Raheem Morris. But I'm sorry, eventually, when people show you who they are, you got to believe them. I gave you a pass with the bad clock management against Washington last year. Yes, I'm still not over that. I gave you a pass when you got embarrassed by rookie Bo Nix. I can't give you a pass getting embarrassed by Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. I'm sorry, I can't. And I can't put Michael Penix struggles on him. Because I know what Michael Penix is capable of. We saw what Michael Penix was capable of based off what he did last season. But it seems like all of a sudden, Michael Penix is scared to throw the deep ball now. I put that on the coaching. I feel like Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson put a handicap on Michael Penix throwing the football downfield. Because they want him to be something that he's not. The Houston Texans are 0-3, tied for last place in the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans after falling 17-10 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I picked the Texans, like everybody, to win the AFC South this year. But I also said that this team wasn't a lock or surefire pick to win this division like they were made out to be. And I also warned a lot of people about this Texans offense possibly being just as bad as what they were last year. Because they have the same issues with this offense that they had last season. The offensive line still isn't good. You can't run the football. That deficiency has been further magnified with Joe Mixon being out. And we don't even know if Joe Mixon is going to suit up to play a game this season. So you can't run the football. You got a bad offensive line. You have nobody but Nico Collins at receiver. So the Texans offense is in even worse shape this year than what it was last year. Because receiver wasn't really as big as a problem last year as what it is now. Because even with the injuries that you had last year, you still had Tank Dell at one point until he finally went out. And then you had Nico Collins who came back. But now it's like you don't even have a secondary option to go to this year. Who's that second guy behind Nico Collins? That's yet to be established. Now, we thought that it was going to be that receiver that they drafted out of Iowa State in the second round, but he hasn't really been targeted that much. He hasn't really been that involved in the offense. And CJ Stroud, there are a lot of the issues that the Texans have offensively that are out of CJ Stroud's control. Like the offensive line, the inability to run the football, that's not on CJ. But CJ Stroud has not taken that step and development that we've been waiting for. After how good he looked in his rookie season, when he was an MVP candidate for the majority of it, we were expecting him to become a top 5 quarterback. Look like Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Joe Burrow, but instead he's kind of been stagnant. And he's not a bad quarterback, but he's not this elite quarterback that folks hype him up to be either. Because if you're an elite quarterback, you can't have the interceptions that CJ Stroud had late in the fourth quarter against the Jacksonville Jaguars. CJ Stroud costed the Texans this game with some of his bad decision making. Now, Nico Collins getting his lunch money took, that's not on CJ Stroud. I'm not putting that on CJ Stroud. This is a concerted effort. But what I am telling you is that CJ Stroud is not excused from any of the blame when it comes to the struggles that the Texans are having offensively. I like CJ Stroud. He's one of my favorite players ever. I've been following CJ Stroud longer than a lot of you guys have been keeping up with CJ Stroud. I've been following CJ Stroud since he was balling out in high school. So I've been following CJ Stroud. So I love CJ Stroud. but we have to hold him accountable as well. And CJ Stroud has been struggling with bad decision-making and accuracy. He's been missing easy throws, the wide-open Texas receivers that nobody points out. Because everybody loves CJ Stroud so much that when things go wrong with the Texans offense, you never think to say maybe CJ Stroud is part of the problem. When he threw that second interception, DeMeco Ryans, did you not see his facial expression? He was blown. He was like, what the hell, CJ Stroud? I don't expect you to make a bad throw like that, a bad decision like that. DeMeco Ryans, he's kind of looking at CJ Stroud the way we're looking at CJ Stroud right now. You know, who are you, CJ Stroud? Because you aren't the same quarterback that we saw ball out in your rookie season. Who are you exactly? Because I didn't see a difference between CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence on Sunday. I saw two quarterbacks both shoot their teams in the foot. And I saw two quarterbacks that hurt their teams try to win the game. The only difference is Trevor Lawrence came out with the W because his defense was able to make up for his mistakes. Unfortunately, the Texans defense couldn't do the same. I think a problem with the Texans offense is that, for one, they're not playing the second best player that they have on that side of the ball. Behind Nico Collins, Woody Marks is the second best player on the Texans offense. Woody Marks was a mid-round pick out of USC at running back that the Texans drafted a few months ago. And he is the best pass-catching back out of this past year's draft class. He also is Mississippi State's all-time career receptions leader as a running back. This guy is a weapon. He's not just a running back. He's not just somebody you hand the football off to 20 times a game. No, this is somebody that you can line up as receiver, outside receiver, slot receiver, wherever. He can be a true weapon. But the Texans don't realize how good Woody Marks is because they're not giving him enough touches. With the issues that the Texans currently have at receiver, Woody Marks, what he can do catching out of the backfield, and with how great he is running routes as a running back, he can be that number 2 option behind Nico Collins in this Texans passing attack. He can also be their RB1 because Nick Chubb is not the same player anymore. And I don't care what you Texans fans try to use to justify it. This is not the same Nick Chubb that we saw in his prime with the Cleveland Browns. When you have to overcome 2 lower body injuries that ended your season this late into your career, you're going to have a hard time getting back to that same level. Woody Marks is the spark that the Texans offense needs. He can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He can be your second best option in the pass game behind Nico Collins. And he also can be your RB1 until Joe Mixon is able to return, if he is able to return. And if not, you got a true all-around weapon. He's a great pass blocker. He's a great runner, has great vision, great contact balance. I do not understand why the Texans are not giving Woody Marks more opportunities. The more Woody Marks is on the field, the better this offense is going to look. Do you guys not realize that good things happen when the Texans give Woody Marks the ball? Some of the most explosive plays that the Texans offense has had up to this point have come thanks to Woody Marks. But instead of feeding the hot hand, they want to keep doing Dale Ugaboale. I don't know how to pronounce the brother's name, and I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, but it's like, bro, he's not that good. Damian Pierce is not that good. He's a rookie wonder. And Nick Chubb is washed. What are we doing? Throw Woody Marks out there, please, Houston. Because if not, you're going to run the risk of becoming irrelevant in your division. You see, the AFC South has caught up with the Houston Texans. And the Texans can't handle it. The Texans can't handle that they have comp in the AFC South. It no longer is the Houston Texans and everybody else like how it has been these past 2 years. No, the Colts are 3-0 in this division. They are actually legitimate contenders for the AFC South title. Same thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We don't know about the Tennessee Titans yet. Maybe they can get it going, but Right now, the Texans are 0-3. And in the NFL, you are what your record says you are. And the Texans' record currently shows that they're a 0-3 football team. They're worse than the Jags, and they're worse than the Colts. Why? Because of their offense. Their quarterback play hasn't been good, and they are not using their second best skill player in Woody Marks. Until they do these things, they're going to continue to flounder the way that they have so far this season. I have about 35 fantasy teams, and I'm not making this up. During the summer, I used to wake up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep. I was bored, so I just drafted a bunch of fantasy teams. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is on every single one of those fantasy teams. And he's been a really huge disappointment. And I'm wondering what's wrong with Marvin Harrison Jr. because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who expected for Marvin Harrison to have a breakout season this year. I mean, your dad is Marvin Harrison, one of the greatest receivers in NFL history. So I have a hard time imagining that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a bust, which I don't believe he's going to be a bust, but he definitely can be a disappointment because right now, he does not look like a receiver that you thought was a top 5 pick. He looks like a back of the end of the first round kind of receiver. Good, but not great. Good, but not a superstar like Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr., who's having his fair share of struggles, but we'll get into him on a different day. This is about Marvin Harrison Jr. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. just not good at all? Because I don't believe that's the case. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not the athlete that Malik Neighbors is. You don't see the explosiveness coming off the line out of Marvin Harrison Jr. that you see with Malik Neighbors. He's not as dynamic after the catch with the ball in his hands as what Malik Neighbors is. But he is a more technically refined receiver in terms of running routes, being able to get open, creating separation than what Malik Neighbors is. At least that's what supposedly was supposed to be the case when he was coming out of college. And the difference between the two, Malik Neighbors was more raw, but more athletically gifted than what Marvin Harrison Jr. was. He was the guy who was supposed to come around his second season. Marvin Harrison Jr. was more so supposed to have the instant success. But it seems like the roles of MHJ and Malik Neighbors have been reversed in terms of what they were supposed to be in the NFL, because Malik Neighbors has been a superstar, and Marvin Harrison Jr., I watch him and he's just a guy. I don't really see anything special when I watch Marvin Harrison Jr. play. He doesn't win a lot of 50-50 balls. You know, it's not like he's the greatest route runner in the world. He's a great route runner, but not a great route runner. He just doesn't get open as much as what Malik Neighbors does. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily all of Marvin Harrison's fault, why his career has gotten out to the slow start that it has up to this point. Kyler Murray is the most inconsistent quarterback in the NFL. For the amount of criticism that Trevor Lawrence gets for not living up to the hype of being a number 1 overall pick, Kyler Murray never gets talked about as much as Trevor Lawrence, and I think he's in that same category. Kyler Murray can look good for one half and look completely awful for the second half. He can look good for one game and look like an average quarterback the next game. You just never know what you're going to get out of Kyler Murray. Every time he steps on the field, he can have one good drive and 2 bad drives the next. He's just a very streaky player. And he doesn't throw the football particularly well in the middle of the field. And even though Marvin Harrison Jr. can be a good deep ball threat, because he's supposed to be this good all-around receiver, he's not particularly great at one thing, but he's good at a bunch of things. You know, he's not a master of anything, but he's a jack of all trades kind of receiver, you know. But to get the most out of somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., he's more effective in the middle of the field. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a good possession receiver. 3rd down and 5. Nobody's open. Marvin Harrison Jr. has to be open somewhere downfield. Or here he goes. Keep the drive alive. You know, he's one of those move the chains kind of receivers. Kyler Murray doesn't use him like that, though. The Cardinals don't use Marvin Harrison Jr. like that, though. The Cardinals have Marvin Harrison Jr., and in spite of using a top 5 pick on him, they don't treat him like he's a top 5 pick. When you have somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., regardless of how good they are or how good they may not be, you still got to force feed them the ball. Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't getting force fed like Malik Neighbors. The Giants are finding ways to get Malik Neighbors at least 10 targets per game. That's the same case. That's what the same case should be for Marvin Harrison Jr. You should be finding ways to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at least 10 targets every game, because that's what a superstar receiver is supposed to get. It can't be one of those things, you know, we're just going to go with the flow. We're not going to force anything, because, I mean, like, you're not beating any of the good teams on your schedule. You could even beat the 49ers with a backup quarterback. Kyler Murray got outplayed by Mac Jones. Why is that? Why is it that your offense got outscored by the 49ers with Mac Jones? Because you're not getting Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball more. You're getting all your other playmakers on offense involved, but the guy that you spent a top 5 pick on at receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr., yeah, he may not be as good as advertised, but we still don't really know, because he's not being treated like the superstar that he's supposed to be by Arizona. Rather, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is overrated or not, the Cardinals still got to get him more involved in the offense. He needs to get 10 targets per game, nothing less than that, because that's the kind of targets that a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. should be getting. Unless he's getting double and quadruple team, then that's a different conversation for another day, but that's not the case. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr. still has to go out there and make the plays, but it's a two-way street when it comes to these things. And all I know is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is not producing for my fantasy team. And something has to change, because nobody else wants to trade for him. And I can't really bench him, because it's hard to bench Marvin Harrison. Because if you bench Marvin Harrison, then there is going to be a game that he ends up going off, because the talent is there for him to be one of the best receivers in the game. And he has had those games. But he also has a lot of games where you just leave him on the bench. So is Marvin Harrison going to break out this year? You guys tell me if you made it this far, because I don't know if I should keep starting Marvin Harrison Jr. or bench him for a guy like Torrey Horton or somebody else on my bench, Calvin Ridley, Alik Ironmaner. I really don't know, but I don't have a lot of better options on my bench for Marvin Harrison Jr. And nobody else seems to be interested in trading for him. So can Marvin Harrison Jr. turn his sophomore season around? Because I'm starting to think that he can't. They only want to give him 5-6 targets a game. Kyler Murray's inconsistency doesn't help. The play calling doesn't help. What the hell is up with Marvin Harrison Jr., man?